Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's the one-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. We've been talking about race in America here throughout the program. I think it's a crucial issue. Wanted to check in with Kymone Freeman, the program director and a host at We Act Radio, our Washington, D.C. affiliate, and an activist with Black Lives Matter D.C. WeActRadio.com, of course, and the Twitter handle at We Act Radio, at BLK Lives Matter, or at Guerrilla Artists, Guerrilla TIST, right? Kymone, welcome back to the program. It's been a while.
Always a pleasure, Brother Thom.
Thank you. I'm curious your thoughts on the possibility that we can get through this. It seems to me like we're almost at one of these, not almost, that Trump, by essentially freezing or reversing, in fact, the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act that made our immigration policy colorblind, and by promoting all the racial tropes and stereotypes that he did throughout the campaigns and throughout his presidency, was very much trying to push America back pre-65 into being a white-run ethno-state. And I think, frankly, if he gets, or any other Republican gets, the White House in 2024, that's back where we're going to go. And yet, the Biden administration has said, no, we're going to embrace this 1965 to 2016 period of racial plurality in America. As a activist with Black Lives Matter, what's your sense of where we're at?
Well, as a student of Thom Hartmann University, I think that the whole statement of what do you call a failed coup attempt, a rehearsal, I think, from what happened on January 6th, this is America's reckoning, and we have to acknowledge that this is our attempt to either dismantle white supremacy once for all, or we're going to have a right-wing fascist country. But let's not forget that the Minneapolis Police Department was burned to the ground. We had worldwide protests of another full video of a lynching, state-sanctioned violence. We've seen these videos before from Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, but there was something unique about this one, about the false police reports that we've all heard about. Ida B. Wells, the great lynching activist, Ida B. Wells said that those who commit the murders write the reports. Well, we all held our breaths when George Floyd verdict, because this is still America. And the first statement that the Minneapolis Police Department released about George Floyd's murder did not mention any use of force. It described, I believe, was a medical distress.
Right.
And so we need to point this out, because we often hear in the defense of police officers, oh, it's just a few bad apples and da-da-da-da. Well, I don't know about others, but I grew up hearing a continuation of that. It said a few bad apples spoils the whole bunch.
There you go, the whole barrel, yeah. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And so we have this new law, I think it's the Carroll law, where this officer from Buffalo, New York, who actually intervened, a good cop intervened in a bad cop choking someone, possibly preventing their death, and she was fired and lost her pension, and she just recently got it back. So now we're changing that culture so that good cops can they have to have a law for good cops to actually defend innocent people from bad cops.
Yeah, which is an amazing thing when you think about it, that it would even be necessary. And yet, I've heard people say 10% of cops are bad, 10% of cops are great, and 80% of cops are, just punching the time clock and not willing to make waves. And therefore, you could throw them in with the bad guys because they're facilitating them, which is 90%. I don't have any idea what the actual numbers are, and I'm not sure anybody does.
Well, I'll tell you what, the FBI had a 2006 report, and as you well know, the FBI is no friend of human rights and civil rights, but they even acknowledged in a 2006 report that law enforcement has been infiltrated, quote unquote, by white supremacists.
Yes.
And we have not done anything about that. We had a 21st Century Police Task Force under the Obama administration, did nothing about that. And we need to acknowledge the reality. I think that we are operating from a faulty premise that, all cops are not bad. That's not the premise that we should be operating from when we said that FBI says law enforcement is infiltrated by white supremacists. It's like, it goes back to the fact that Europe is not a continent. That's a shock shocking statement to people until they look at that map and realize that we all have been miseducated to arrive at a faulty conclusion because we're starting from a faulty premise. I mean, many of our police departments around America are actually trained in Israel. A lot of people don't know that. Who also has a history of state-sanctioned violence and human rights violations. And these are things that we need to point out. And I think that George Floyd was possibly the straw that broke the camel's back. I still don't have the reason why, because we've seen so many times of these state-sanctioned murders on camera, but I think it was because it was slow. I think that was what was different. Everything before was fast. This one was slow and excruciating, and we all kind of shared those minutes together. And I think that's what made this one different.
Yeah, I think you're right. It evoked an empathetic response right across the board that highlighted our common humanity rather than splitting us apart. Kymone Freeman, program director, host at We Act Radio in Washington, D.C., weactradio.com, and an activist with Black Lives Matter in D.C. Kymone, thanks a lot for dropping by today. Great talking with you.
Thanks for the work you do. Take care.
Back at you.